I'm Nick Petrie, and you're watching the Crew Reviews.
Gentlemen, it's been a while.
Yes.
Look at this. Look
Yes.
who's back with us for another round of obscene questions. It's Mr. Nick Petrie. Sir, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Mike?
Right on, right on, right on. Well, hey, it's been a little bit. We haven't talked to you in a little while, so maybe you can give us the 411 on the latest and greatest book that you're coming out with.
Sure, it's called The Dark Time. It shows up on March 10th, and it begins with Peter being asked to help out a friend of June's, a journalist who has just gotten a very specific death threat. So it's set in Seattle. It starts off with a bang, so to speak. And then it goes into, sort of newer territory for me, which I'm not quite sure how much of that I should talk about. I said you guys are actually my first interview for this book. I've got a crap
Hmm.
ton lined up, so you guys are my test audience, and I have to figure out what I don't yet know or haven't quite figured out how to talk about with this book. So this will be a laboratory for me.
All
All
right.
right. All right. The book explores technology's impact, specifically people embracing innovation versus those who feel left behind and kind of resentful. With AI transforming industries, including ours, and we'll get to that more later, how did you approach making this tension feel human rather than kind of preachy, which is what we tend to get fed to us on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I was trying really hard not to sort of stake out a position. I really hate when writers are like shoving their point of view down your throat, whether it's
Yeah.
political or whatever. So I'm just trying to. I mean, in part, it started as sort of an exploration of how I feel about this stuff. I went through a phase where I was really diving into reading about AI and some of the things that it could do and some of the things that boosters sort of say it's going to be able to do quite soon. And it kind of freaked me out. And between that and, the world in general, I go through these phases where it's hard to feel super optimistic about where we're going as a country or a planet. Um,
Yeah.
Wildfires and hurricanes and you know crazy political crap. So it was as much a way for me to kind of explore that and to try to understand people who are reacting to that. I mean, we are going through so much, change, both social and technological as a society, and it's a really weird, crazy, and interesting time to be alive. So I was as much trying to kind of explore my own reactions, and to be sympathetic to those who might feel differently because I think it's very real.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know. It's the more people I talk to about this. Sean, your text to me was sort of hilarious. About sort of if the whole thing keeping you up all night. And it's that this book is having that reaction but for readers to be like they cannot put it down, which for me is a totally high compliment.
Yeah.
It cost me some sleep. So, and
You're welcome.
that's a precious commodity for me. So,
Yeah,
I
I'm,
mean,
I'm with you.
pretty
I'm
damn
with you.
good.
So Nick, we have not only readers, tune into the crew reviews, but we also have aspiring writers. A lot of aspiring writers want to, pick the brain of the people that we interview, and you're, one of those people that they would love to hear some advice from. So there's a charismatic leader in the book who preys on people's fears and misfortunes, and we're seeing that playbook everywhere, kind of like right now in the real world. So, what advice can you give aspiring writers on writing a villain whose followers you want readers to understand and maybe even feel a little empathy for, while still making that guy loathsome?
Well, I mean, the secret to writing villains is the same as writing other characters, is you have to find that part of yourself that you are trying to that is sympathetic, right? So we all have, various parts of ourselves, and I try to find sort of what part of myself am I, going to sort of amplify into a given character. And villains are fun because, I have parts of myself that I don't really want to show people, right? That I try to keep under wraps, my inner serial killer, if you will.
We'll raise
Um,
more of that later too.
yeah. So I mean, that's why crime fiction is, I think, very interesting and very popular, is because we all have those darker parts of ourselves. And I also think that's why, with really only a couple of exceptions, every crime writer I know is a really nice person, because we get to, sort of exercise our demons on the page. So I'm not sure that I actually answered your question, Chris, about,
No, you
how to.
did. Basically, it's put yourself in the character or pieces of yourself, or look, dive deep into your inner self, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and there's one of my favorite lines. I can't remember who said it, but even the villain is a hero in their own
Mhm.
minds,
Mhm.
right? So you have to lean into that, or else you're just going to be writing sort of this cackling supervillain. And like, I mean, there's a place for that, but it's boring to me. I really am looking for complex characters, people. If you can't understand the villain's motivations and they don't feel real to you, that what happens to that character isn't going to feel real to you. I want you to always be, rooting for him a little bit,
Yeah.
um, because that means I've made him, kind of recognizably human.
Yeah. I think my problem is I mistook the whole advice about exorcising your demons, and I've been exercising them. And they just keep getting stronger. No, no. Oh, by the way, if you do become a serial killer, do it in Arizona. That way you can pick your doctor.
Ah,
Healthcare at its best.
See you
perfect.
soon.
Now, the idea of educated, trusted people being radicalized or brainwashed feels uncomfortably real for anybody who pays attention to anything. What
Mm.
drew you to that element, and is there something uniquely dangerous when it's not the uneducated fringe, but people with credentials and access?
I mean, this. I don't want to get sort of too deep into politics here. I do think that this phenomenon plays on both sides.
Mhm.
And what to me makes it, kind of interesting to do, is that we are seeing that very phenomenon right now, where, um, we are bifurcating into, sort of two sort of siloed news environments, two siloed information environments, and I don't think that's good for anybody. I think we need to sort of figure
No.
out how to keep talking to each other. Um, but there are so many things that are, the whole information ecosystem is basically designed to enrage us and irritate us and make
Yeah.
us scared, right? The whole "it bleeds, it
Right.
leads" thing, which has been part of the news business for, uh, since the 70s or earlier. I mean, that's true with, very reputable news organizations on the left and on the right. Oh, we're going to give you the latest outrage about X, Y, or Z, and I don't know. I don't find that to be useful for us as a society. And I think a lot of people are. Yeah, I think people get sucked into it, but because we're siloed, you're not learning anything new. You have to really work to sort of dive deeper into sort of the truth of something, as opposed to just, some idiot's opinion of something.
Yeah.
So I think the radicalization piece is happening, and I think it's only going to accelerate unless we really sort of change some ways that we think about things.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. We talk about this all the time. It's very difficult for someone who's earnestly looking for news and information to find any source that you can't like see a complete slant to it, even in like a what you would consider just a basic news report. And it's like, and that's when you're looking for it, you're really looking for something unbiased, and you're just like, yep, nope, that's not it. Nope, that's not it. And it doesn't matter if it's biased towards my preconceived my own preconceived biases, I still reject it. I still hate it because
Yep.
it's not giving me what I need intellectually. So I thought the book really like hit home on that issue, and so I mean it's
Right,
extremely
Sean,
great.
you know what I found interesting? I found that in one part of the story, Nick, you have one of the
No
characters
spoilers.
go through. No, they go through all the apps, and you list off like, I don't know, so five of them or whatever, and there's like a new one every day, and we have so many ways of communicating, as you were
Yeah.
saying, but no one's talking to each other, right? It's just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
talking to that echo chamber, and you're just feeding back what you already believe.
Well, and especially online, right? Like, it's so easy to scream at somebody on social media because there's no repercussion. That's not a real person.
Yeah.
That's just
Right.
like the idea of somebody on the other, somewhere beyond your screen.
No one's punching
But
you in
like
the face.
if yeah, but if you have a conversation face to face with somebody, you immediately, like, this is just a human thing. Unless you're kind of nuts, you're modifying how you act and how you behave. We mirror each other as human beings to try to find common ground. That is, we are social animals, and we evolved into living in small groups that cooperated. And
Right.
like that wiring is still there. And to me, the social media especially, but sort of this weird online world, is sort of bypassing our normal instincts that have helped us function for so long. So it's I am more and more trying to just talk to people that I care about, whether it's just, a phone call is great, right? Or to do something like this, where, hey, I can see your face, I can read your expressions, I can tell right now that you're probably a little bored, that kind of thing.
Or
Well,
drunk.
Yeah, or just rolling
Or
your eyes,
drunk,
whatever.
or drunk, Mike says.
well, along those lines, Caitlin, she's the type of independent journalist that I think that we all kind of want, right? But did you ever feel a push or a pull from today's real life, you know, headlines where the true independent journalism stands versus like the ever prevalent activism or partisan journalism that, like we said, has taken over much of the news feeds?
Well, so the organization that, I can't remember if I left this in the book or not, but the organization that June works for is a fictionalized version of ProPublica, which is a nonprofit news organization that essentially sort of crowdsources funding for particular stories. And they may or may not have a left-leaning bias, but they are kind of unimpeachable as journalists and as researchers. So I think part of it is you just need to, the Wall Street Journal is another one of these places, right? They have their bias, but you cannot, like, these are the top tier of journalists, and they can back up all their stuff with real quotes and real facts. And to me, it's just like, the what does Elon Musk say? Mainstream media lies. I think it's actually the opposite. That there are a couple of outlets that you really, again, you have to know what the bias is, and sometimes the bias is just the stories they choose to publish, and then the stories they choose not to publish. That's how you can see bias as well. But you have to. I just look at professionalism, at people who are good at what they do, that are recognized for being good at what they do. I you know you the New York Times has their bias. It's fine, but you just have to you have to read multiple things, and you have to lean in to sort of consider that bias. You have to be an educated reader. That's really the bottom line.
So
Yeah.
is Caitlin really kind of where you kind of hope things would be versus kind of where things are at in general?
Sure. She's based on Tara Swisher, who is a New York Times columnist and who was really a kind of the first tech journalist, who was in San Francisco on the ground floor. She wrote a great book, whose name escapes me, about sort of those early days and like meeting Mark Zuckerberg as a 22-year-old.
Hmm.
Um, and she really could, make or break. She really could, sort of thrash a CEO in the way that Caitlin Thorson, the character in my book, does. So times have changed, but I think those journalists are out there. But journalists also have a personal stake, right? They are investigative journalists, especially, are crusaders by nature, right? They are trying to accomplish something, and they are held to account by good editors, saying, okay, this is what you think, but where did you get that? Show me your sources. I want to hear the recording of your. I want to hear the tape. There is a system in place. But I mean, I think places like ProPublica, and there are a couple of other outlets now who are really looking for sort of zero bias. But I can't think of them right now. But there's been a couple of them in the news,
I don't even
and
know if
I think that's a way to go.
I don't even know if that's possible today. But I love how you referenced
No.
the tape, and readers, you'll learn about that
Oh,
in the story. That's pretty cool.
that was a lot of fun to write that bit. Just
like
sort of imagining what that would sound like, that very analog moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you got a bunch of millennials or KT's daughter, they wouldn't even know what to do with it. Like, what is this?
Well, actually, cassettes are making a little bit of a comeback. It's sort of the next stage after vinyl.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we can look forward
So
to
like
seeing
there are a bunch of kind of higher end tape players with Bluetooth that you can connect into your car or your stereo or your computer or whatnot. Diving into that piece was, it's like, I don't know, it's like we are no longer living in our time. We are living in all times at once.
Yeah,
this. I love that.
that's true.
Write it down. Write it down.
It's a great quote.
So Nick, the static has been Peter's constant companion, but in the dark time, I felt as a reader that it was largely absent. It was there, but it was largely absent. Was that a deliberate choice to show Peter's evolution, or did the story's velocity, because it's very fast paced, simply not leave room for it?
Well, in part that, I mean, the static sort of comes and goes, and so if this is a book that's largely an outdoor book,
Right.
Yeah.
so that helps sort of alleviate the white static, which is Peter's post-traumatic, what he calls his post-traumatic stress from that shows up as claustrophobia. But it does ebb and flow, and I'm trying to kind of find other ways to express it. The book I'm editing now, it sort of takes on a little bit of a different flavor, just to, it's just become more of a core characteristic. And what I'm trying to show in the books where it's more highlighted is like, how do people, how to model how people can deal with this, because it doesn't go away. Post-traumatic stress, you can diminish you diminish it, you can work with it, you can sort of befriend it, but it's with you in some format or another, for the rest of your life. And so part of the mission for me as a writer is to, and I get a lot of messages from people who have got post-traumatic stress, is to sort of model that path. What are the things you can do? And it's less of an issue in this book, but it certainly comes back in the next one.
Awesome. Well, as somebody who has, I was going to say survived, but we'll say navigated raising two independent-minded daughters to adulthood, I thought Ellie was very well rendered. So my question is, did you have a real life inspiration for her? Was she pure imagination? And secondly, was her creation sort of a calculated move to give Peter a new challenge, or did she just pop up organically as you wrote the story?
She popped up organically. I wanted, one of the questions I ask myself with every book is like, there's always sort of a client character, right? There's somebody that Peter is trying to help or defend. And the question is always, like, is this someone who welcomes Peter's help or does not welcome Peter's help? And we've had a little bit of that both ways. And so this book was sort of like, I wanted a little bit of both. And I wanted Ellie to, both sort of push back against him at times, but she really heightens the emotionality. She really helps you see what the stakes are. And I also, 9 books into this series, and the 10th book comes out in a year. And I'm sort of asking myself, so what kind of character have I not done before? Like I'm trying to sort of find the things that are possible that I haven't yet done. And I haven't done a teenage girl as a character. Um, and it was so much fun. I'm not sure. So I'm the father of one son.
Mm.
So I have not really been a fly on the wall for that, but I have a writer friend named Bill Schweigert who's got a
Yeah.
daughter she's amazing. She is a piece of work in the best possible way, but sort of having spent a little time with Sid and hearing Bill's take on his daughter kind of gave me a point of access. And when my son was a teenager, we would have his friends to the house, and some of those friends were girls, and he was part of the cross country team, and so you would sort of be a fly on the wall for some of that stuff. But so that's where she came from, and I, I would love to do more with her.
Yeah, like she sets up well for that. So that's really cool. You said something in your answer that popped up a question I'm not so sure we've ever asked you. When you are doing a Peter Ash book, is the first thing that usually comes to you the client and the client and their problem, or is it sometimes it could be born of geography too, but like what is there a sort of a common way your books start when it comes to formulating the ideas?
It all depends. Every book sort of arrives in a different way. Unfortunately, I wish I could sort of systematize it, but every attempt to do that just results in crap. So usually, what I'm looking for is an interesting start. I'm looking for something that I can sort of launch the reader into. So I'm looking for an entry point, and that implies usually there's a client involved, quote unquote. But not always. And I certainly don't always know what the client's problem is. I often don't know what the client's problem is until, well into the second act. I just know the kind of problem it is, and I'm developing that as I work. As you can tell, I'm a pantser, right? So I'm just making this all up as I go along. And there's a point at which I have, just in the course of writing, I have left myself some clues to be like, okay, where does this trail of breadcrumbs leave me? Um, but mostly, and the question of place, because these books all take place in relatively different locations, is sometimes I'll start with a place, and I'll be like, what are the kinds of things that happen here? So like the Memphis book was like that, where um, I had a client character in mind, but I didn't really know anything about life in Memphis. So I started reading the Memphis paper online, and there was an article about a jewelry store robbery in an upscale mall. And I just sort of, it just, the light bulb comes on, as it does every once in a while. And I kind of knew what the beginning to that book was going to be. And every place also kind of implies certain kinds of stories, right? So that Memphis book is about, among other things, kind of race and class and history. Um, this current book is set in Seattle, and it's a Seattle implies a certain kind of a certain kind of story, or it can in this modern time. Um, so I'm always interested in that, and then I sort of lean into the place, and I'm like, so which version of this place, right? So there's Seattle in this book, but there's also the larger Pacific Northwest, the rain and the looming trees, and a big chunk of this book is really outside of the city.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a very dynamic process, and I wish I could. I wish I could. You guys know this. Yeah, I wish I could figure out how to simplify this, but it's
Yeah.
I think it is, allowing it to be complex is part of the point for me.
Yeah, and so I think some of that has to evolve as you go along. You can't plot that entire thing out like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I know plotters who are like, yeah, I'll write out the plot, and then I'll basically, throw it out the window, and I'll just begin from what I remember the book should be.
Yeah.
And I know plotters who are like, yeah, I'll write a whole outline and it'll only get me through the first act, and then I have to start over with the outline because of what they've written so far and what they've learned along the way.
Yeah. June takes a kind of a bigger role in this story. And there's been some evolution. How has the writing evolved over the series for her? Is there something different about writing a romantic partner who's highly competent versus the typical hero protects the loved one dynamic?
Well, she always had to be a really strong person from the get-go. That first book, she shows up first in in the second book called Burning Bright. And she needed to be strong because Peter's a handful. Peter is a lot, and he was particularly, in those early books is pretty screwed up with the post-traumatic stress. So she had to be somebody who could both handle his crap and also not really put up with it, which is, a familiar from my own life, let me just say.
I think all four of us had that similar
Yeah.
dynamic.
Yep.
Well, it's also more interesting because they push back against each other, right? So if she just says, yes, honey, whatever you think, that's not a very interesting relationship. So again, part of
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do is develop not just complex characters, but complex relationships that we will recognize in the world. And I think that's one of the reasons I actually have a fair number of female readers, and I think those two pieces are part of that.
Yeah.
Why the Peter Ash books have a big female readership.
Yeah.
I love when June's getting serious when she doesn't call Peter by like Peter, she calls him Marine. Like
Yeah. Well, that's true from life as well. I have a friend who is in his 70s now who was a recon Marine, and he's the reason Peter is a recon Marine. This is a guy who was a friend of my dad's um, for years and years and years. And his wife, when she's annoyed at him, says Marine, or just wants to get his attention, Marine. So I completely stole that from real life, which is what writers do.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I love that.
Nice.
So in this book, Peter's got a couple of nicknames. Yeah, Ellie has a nickname for him that comes out often, and June does that. And so this is book 9 with Peter Ash, right? I know you said you're editing number 10, I guess. At what point in a long-running series do you feel the tension between honoring who a character has been versus letting him generally change? Like, how do you navigate that with Peter? I know he's a construct of your mind, but how do you navigate with him?
That's a really good question. I've got a piece I've written for Crime Reads that's going to show up online about this very topic. And you have to, the characters, for me, I want characters that evolve going forward. I don't. I think it's a real challenge to write a static character that doesn't evolve from book to book. To me, I would kind of get bored with that. But characters evolve like people evolve, and like I evolve, right? So my sense of things is not the same as it was when that first book was published in 2016. So part of it is my own evolving sense of life and the things that I'm interested in sort of shift as well. And so, part of that is I am not Peter Ash and Peter Ash is not me, but we share a sensibility and a kind of a way of thinking about the world. And, I think, sort of that evolution is inevitable. And I think a lot of it is not, I don't stay up late sort of thinking, how is Peter going to evolve in this book? But I do think about, sort of how does Peter show up in this book? Like what has happened between the last book and this book? And how is he reacting to that? And I'm not, there aren't 3 chapters of backstory. It's almost just a line or two, but I have to know that about, kind of where his head is at. And that helps me kind of find my way forward. And that's true of June. That's true of Lewis. Lewis is actually we've had different versions of Lewis as the series has gone forward. Lewis is Peter's best friend. And June, we've seen June, sort of step up and take a more active role. She's sort of become the investigator character as an investigative journalist. She not only has the people skills, but also sort of the online skills to dig in and find out stuff that Peter, who is kind of a non-tech person, is less good at.
You touched on my next question actually just now. Nine books in, and Lewis remains one of my favorite characters and a very compelling guy. How do you keep him fresh without completely domesticating him? And is there a line you won't cross with his character?
I mean, the heart and soul of Lewis now is that he feels like Peter has saved him by introducing him to, or by reuniting him with the love of his life from his teenage years, before he joined the army, before he became a career criminal, and allowed him to evolve into a more full and complete person. And Lewis has a lot of self-awareness, um, but he remains that person. And one of the things that I have friends who are um, ex-military, and I look at these relationships with their wives, and I'm like, how did you end up with this wild man? And like, how did you navigate, all of those deployments, all of that, you know, risk and fear while raising your kids? And I've heard from 3 or 4 spouses. I knew what he was when I met him. And that really comes through for both June and for Dinah, who is Lewis's
Yeah.
sweetheart. That like people are who they are. And I think the best kinds of relationships is I'm not trying to make you into who I want you to be. I am trying to see and understand and honor who you actually are. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do with the characters, and that's what lets Lewis go off and show up to help Peter, because Dinah, his wife, knows that he needs to scratch that itch, and he feels that he owes a debt to Peter, which Peter, by
Yeah.
the way, feels the debt goes in the entirely opposite direction, because Lewis has saved Peter's butt so many times.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, back to the question of character, right? Like Lewis is Lewis is somebody I've always wanted to be, in a way, right? Like he's way smarter than I am, but he has this whole suite of skills, maybe topmost of which is he doesn't really care what the rules are. He doesn't care what the law is. He's going to do what he needs to do, either for himself or for the people that he cares for.
I always think,
And so that's, I guess, Sean, kind of the organizing principle of for Lewis, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. Have you ever considered doing like either a more Lewis focused backstory novel, or a novella, or a spinoff with him?
I do have a novella that was published in Mystery Tribune a couple years ago, and I will, when I get the time, I will put it out as an ebook. But it's like,
Ooh, wow.
18,000 words, and it's Lewis right before he meets Peter. It's the job
Oh,
before
perfect.
he meets Peter. So
Yeah,
you
I
can
think that's
find
what
it. You have to
Lewis
buy
is
the whole
saying.
magazine, but
Yeah.
but you can find it. It's issue 21, I think. You can find it online.
Nick, before we do that, who are the other names in the magazine?
Who are the other
Uh,
like who else publishes there?
Yeah. Who's in that one you
don't
wrote?
no don't fall for this. Don't take the bait.
I'm afraid to
Don't
ask.
do it. Don't do
I have
it.
no idea, but apparently
Yeah.
Chris is going to let me
Apparently
know.
Chris will tell us off
Nobody
air.
else knows either. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, whenever I think of Peter and Lewis, I always think of, for whatever reason, right or wrong, The Town, where Ben Affleck is talking to Jeremy Renner. He's like, "Listen, we need to go do some stuff, and we got to do it like right now. We can't ask any questions." And Jeremy Renner's just like, "Whose car are we taking?" I just love that. So I just
Yeah.
think of those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's and it goes both ways, right? So the previous book, The Price You Pay, begins with, Peter's asleep. It's 4 a.m. He wakes up, he hears a noise, he goes downstairs in his underwear,
Mm.
and there's Lewis, making peanut butter sandwiches and coffee in the kitchen, saying, "Hey, you busy today?" And Peter has a lot of stuff to do. He's renovating a house. He's got all of these these things that he's got to do at just the right time. But his answer, of course, is nope. Let me send a couple emails. I'll be right with you. So so and Lewis does the same thing.
Yeah. Well, Nick, you've been at this writing game for a while now. How has the landscape shifted for like both people like you or established authors and hopeful authors since like from the beginning when you first started to now? What's that landscape look like, and how has that shifted in that time frame?
Well, there are a lot more women being published now, and I think the emphasis has changed with that. I mean, there are obviously women writing all kinds of stuff, but I think there's less of this kind of tough guy stuff out there. And there aren't many writers who started when I did whose series are still perking along. I feel really quite lucky.
Yeah.
I know lots of talented writers whose their stuff, they had to make a shift after book 4 or 3 or 2. Um, but the readership is changing. It's getting older, certainly.
Yeah.
But people's attention spans are getting shorter. I I feel a little pressure to kind of write shorter, but I seem to be chronically unable to do that. It used to be that 90,000 words was sort of the sweet spot,
Yeah.
um, which is somewhere between, somewhere under 400 pages, depending
Yeah.
on, typeface and layout and all that other stuff. Um, and my longest was at 125. And I'm always trying to tighten and to sort of take stuff out because I do think people have shorter attention spans and they read on their phones and they're reading short stuff. So I
Yeah.
think I think the environment is challenging for long form writers of all sorts. But also I think, if you write something fantastic, the audience is there. Readers are still there and they are looking for good stuff. And so part of it is just, I think, hone your craft and get better. I've never been somebody who sort of looks at the market and says, "Oh, this segment is growing and this segment is shrinking." And I do know writers who work like that. I can't be that uh, sort of bloody minded about it. I really
Yeah.
follow what interests me. I write the book I want to read, and I'm lucky in that I feel like I kind of have the luxury to do that between my publisher and my editor in particular, who's has been a fan since the very beginning. But it is a challenging landscape, and especially if you are, sort of, I think military thrillers in particular, which is not what I think I do, and it's not what the military thriller writers that I know think I do. But I think that segment in particular, there's some reader fatigue. And I think that audience is shrinking. And I don't know if they're just aging out or if we're just, you know, tired of, reading about war. I don't know.
Hmm.
I was kind of one of the first people to write about post-traumatic stress, to write about people coming home from war, kind of in the, stuff before me was really, what is the war on terror and what are those events like and what's happening? Um, and I was, I think, kind of the first to write about the aftermath of that war,
Hmm.
and what it does to people and how you have to sort of change your, how do you live after sort of the most profound experience anybody will ever have is
Yeah.
urban combat. Um, so, and there are a lot of people who came after me, and not many of them are still writing anything like that.
Right.
Probably one of the reasons why you have that staying power. Peter Ash has the staying power because it's similar but different. Like because you just
Well, and I'm, I think it's critical now, right? There are 90% of books are bought by women. So it's critical
wait, what's that
to
number? 90?
90%.
Oh,
So it's critical to think about who you want your reader to be. And for me, I have kind of an ideal reader, right? So the person that I write for is my wife. And she doesn't normally read stuff like mine. And so I have to really lean into, character, relationships, emotion, um, kind of real consequences to capture her interest. And I think that's part of why I'm still selling books, is because I'm trying to appeal to everybody without being without pandering, without dumbing stuff down. I tell complex stories, but I don't know. I think you have to not just write for somebody like you. You have to find somebody
Yeah.
who you can write to.
Right. I think
Yeah.
so. Speaking of writing, in the back of even these advanced copies that we receive, we get to read your acknowledgments. And in your acknowledgments, you mention, quote, the great insanity of the writing life, end quote. And
Generally.
needing encouragement to get over the hump on this one, I guess in particular. So the question is, what was the hump? Was it plot problem, a motivational problem, or something else entirely? And did Schweigert help or encumber?
So the challenge with this is a little deep in the weeds. But I had written, after the last Peter Ash book, I had written a standalone novel, and my editor had okayed the concept, and he'd read the first act plus very enthusiastically. We had a great couple of conversations. He said, "All right, we'll talk again when send it to me when you've got the second act done." And between those times, Penguin Random House, which had been trying to acquire Simon and Schuster, that deal was nixed by the courts, and so because of what in hindsight appears to be a spectacularly bad job of negotiating, Penguin Random House, my publisher, had to pay Simon and Schuster $200 million.
For nothing.
Which is, I don't know about you guys, but that seems like a lot of money to me. And one of the
Yes.
ways that they dealt with this was, they fired a whole lot of people. They fired something like 10% of their workforce,
Yeah.
including my editor.
Yeah.
And I ended up with somebody who
Was that Tavani?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and he was a great editor, by the way. Um, and and so they gave me to somebody who was not particularly interested in what I wrote.
Mhm.
And as a result, and again, I think if I had written a spectacular book, the result would have been different. But they said, thanks, but no thanks. We're not going to publish this. So I lost a whole year.
Wow.
And it for a writer, like, you need a certain amount of self-confidence to think that you can actually tell a story that somebody else is going to want to read. And
Right.
it just really knocked me on my ass. And it took me a long time to recover from that. And it really was, talking to writer friends, and it's a long list of people that I talked to about this, and there are names that you would know. Um, it just sort of, like, this happens, keep moving. And it took me a while to get there, but then I've written two books since, and I'm back on my feet. But some books are just hard for lots of reasons. And to me, really, the real point is the community piece, is that there are not very many people who know what it's like to try to write a book, let alone somebody who, what it's like to be, 5 books in, or 10 books in, or 15 books in, or 20 books in. So I really lean on that community, to just be like, and I heard great stories from a couple of folks who've been in this for a long time, who really just was like, yeah, I had that hadn't happened to me, but this happened to me, and oh, that happened to me. And so it was like, oh, it's sort of like a longevity tax. That was what I ended up with. It's like, if you were in this business long enough, there was going to be some kind of upheaval like this.
Yeah.
And you are going to get, don't having any ego about what you do is not helpful, because the industry is brutal. And I didn't get an editorial letter. I didn't get a here's why we think we don't want to publish. I got a no, and that was it. And it was like, okay. So that was the challenge, and was sort of getting back on the horse. Um, and yeah, I don't know. It was a really instructive period of time for me, and I think that's the right way to think about all the crazy stuff that happens to us, whether it's your personal life or your professional life, or in the larger world around you. It's like shit happens. You got to be resilient. You got to pull up your socks and go back to work.
Not knowing why you didn't get that would just drive me batshit crazy. Like I wouldn't sleep for a month. Like, why
That
didn't you pick it? And what do I have to do to correct it? Like,
that was the hardest part, and they were perfectly within their rights to say no. Right, there was no guarantee that they were going
sure,
to publish this. I knew that from the get-go.
yeah,
It was a flyer for me. I was trying to do something else. I just needed to scratch a different itch.
Sure.
But that was exactly, Mike, the hard thing was that, like, how do I fix it? How do I mean, this is what the editing
right,
process is like, right? Is you tell me what the problems are, and I
yeah,
and I do my best to fix them. So it's
yes,
I don't tell my editor this, but at a certain point I'm going to ask. I have, again, a new editor now for the last couple of books. So
mhm,
I'm going to ask him to read it and to actually
Cool.
have a conversation with me about it. Um,
yeah,
just because it was a year of my life. Like, there's a lot in that book I really like, and so I just have to kind
yeah,
of
Did
you
you
yeah,
know
yeah,
take
yeah.
leave it
did
in
you
the drawer
take
for a
Bill's
little
advice?
while.
Did you take Bill's advice? Or did you just throw that right out the window?
Bill, what advice did I get from
Was
Bill?
it drunk Bill or
See?
sane Bill?
Anyway, we
Let me
love
just
Bill.
hold
We
on,
love
because
Bill.
we're talking trash about Bill. I just want to say that anybody who's watching this should go out and buy his excellent book, The Guilty One,
Oh my
by
God.
Bill,
Yes,
Yeah,
great book.
because it is
100%.
spectacular.
And I'm so
Yeah,
mad that that whole thing makes me angry. That's
What?
a great book, and
Oh,
he
The
would
yeah,
be a
Guilty
great person
Two.
to talk to about, because we all wanted book two.
Yeah, Guilty Two.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah,
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 it's
Nick, I got to see you
but
at his launch. That's right. I forgot that.
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
We
yeah.
had a nice conversation. That was a bunch of fun.
It was a good time.
And I learned your wife packs a pistol
She does
when she goes out to,
do her thing.
patrol the yard.
Yeah.
Hmm. You see all the marks on his skull too, where he,
well, I want to ask
She's
one
not
more
listening.
question about the book here, and really your writing process. But how do you calibrate pacing when you're running hot for an entire book? And what I mean by that is there was no Act Two lag. Do you have your own sort of craft giving readers sort of micro recoveries without killing momentum, because you do an exceptional job of doing that? And I just don't know if that's a conscious sort of act on your part, or
I know that it's something that I do. I'm not necessarily doing it consciously. Like, I know that you need to, like, after you have a moment of intense whatever emotion, action, a consequence, something that you have to give the reader a minute. But there are lots of ways to do that, and I'm always sort of trying to kind of keep the story going forward. The line I always use with writing students was something that apparently Steven Spielberg says, which is, tell your story on a moving sidewalk. So you're always kind of moving the thing forward, even if you're describing a place or you're describing a conversation. Like, everything has to keep things moving forward.
Mhm.
So that's kind of my take, and I have just gotten. Again, I've been doing this long enough. I've just gotten so that I can just sort of feel it, and I read and I reread and I reread. I go through, when I get stuck, I'll often go back and print everything out so far, with a pen in my hand, and I'll just go through again. And part of that is, like, I leave myself these notes in all caps because I don't want to, like, slow my own momentum by going back and fixing stuff as it occurs to me. But, like, I'll go and fix the things that make sense to fix, and I will. But reading like that, which is really editing kind of as a reader, it really helps you. And reading out loud actually is another great trick. I don't do it as much as I used to, but when I'm at a spot I can't figure out what the problem is, I will always read it out loud, because that really helps you figure out where the things that don't work are. Um, So I begin every day by going back a couple of days work and reading. And I will, you find the clunky sentence, you find the paragraph that's not organized properly, you'll, take out the extra lines that aren't needed. And, to me, that's sort of the tune-up process. And then by then I'm kind of warmed up, and then I sort of just jump into the next day's, work, because I have hopefully have kind of left myself a little set of instructions about what I'm going to do next and where I'm going to go next. I always try to end the day with, here's what happens tomorrow.
Mm.
That's a Hemingway trick.
Well, speaking of Hemingway, let's have a drink for the great Nick Petrie. You survived the regular portion of the show. We're going to dust off the next phase called the lightning round.
It's so nice to see you guys. I just gotta say, this is really one of my favorite parts about getting the book in the world, is getting to do this with you guys, and maybe I'll even get to see y'all in person again one of these days.
Yeah, let's hope, right?
I actually might head up to Milwaukee from Rockford instead of coming back for one of your events up there. I'm gonna look at the schedule and see if I can make that work.
Yeah. Well, the Monday the 9th is at Boswell Books, which is sort of the pre-launch launch. And then I have a couple of library gigs, not the next week, but the week after. And also, I don't know if Madison's closer for you, but there's a bookstore in Madison called Mystery to Me that I'm doing an event.
Not closer.
And Oconomowoc, which is about a kind of between Milwaukee and Madison.
You need to get people. There's a couple nice venues in Indianapolis that people are starting to come to. Let's see, Granny's been here, Carr's been here. There's a really nice library there. I just need to put your people in touch with the lady.
Sure. Or just send me contact deets, and I'll have my folks reach out.
I will.
Yeah, no, it'd be great. That'd be great.
I'm locked in with Poison Pen. All right, here we go, Nick. Are you ready? Are you ready?
No, I'm never ready for this kind of thing for you guys.
This is usually the better time to not be ready. All right, here we go. Lightning round. Nick Petrie is standing in front of 100 professional tradesmen. He's on a stage. These are one or the other questions, and be prepared to be booed off the stage. Number one, Milwaukee or DeWalt?
I mean, I live in Milwaukee. I'm from Milwaukee, so I have to say Milwaukee. I have a couple of Milwaukee tools. I am profligate in my tool purchasing. So I don't actually own any DeWalt. So okay, that's an easier answer. Milwaukee.
There you go. All right. Well, there goes half the crowd. All right, number two, cord or cordless?
I am an old school guy, so the only cordless tool I own is a cordless drill and impact driver. But you really have to be full time on the tools for cordless tools to work, because those batteries, don't last forever. So
yeah,
you really, and the cold beats them up, and so if I were starting up, a renovation business again, I would lean into the cordless stuff because it's so much easier.
Yeah.
And if I was on the tools all day, that would be no question. I would go with even cordless nail guns. I've got air tools and all that other stuff, but I would absolutely go to cordless if I were doing this now.
Well, now, are you going to do the 30 angle, or what? You're framing one. What angle are we going with now? Come on.
I think there is going to be no framing in my future. I've got an old Senko that is very temperamental. That would probably be one of the first things to go if I were framing up an addition.
All right, last question: work van or trailer?
Oh, work van all the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. It's all self-contained.
All right. There we go.
Plus, they're good for camping.
There you go. With all those tools, you're going to move all those tools out of there to put your camping stuff in.
Well, so my last work van was a Chevy G20, and I had it. Never did really very sort of tool specific stuff, but I had this platform that I could put tools below, or like sheetrock below, plywood below, and tools above.
Yeah.
And I could also, it was a great kind of sleep in camping vehicle as well. So part of the fun, I'm actually contemplating buying a new van, and that would be part of the fun, would be kitting it out to be used as a camper.
Such a
This is the
guy
level of
answer.
geekness,
This is
the
such a
level
guy
of
answer.
geekness that you guys are talking
This
about.
is the only part of the interview that I'm really not that interested in.
And we've totally lost all the viewers here.
All right, let's try to
There's
get some
two
of them back.
left.
I'm going to try and
All
get
right, cool.
Yeah, this is for Schweigert. Peter takes a round to his vest, and you wrote that it felt like a framing hammer to the chest. True or false? Framing hammers hurt more than concrete ones.
What's a concrete hammer?
I'm asking you.
I mean, a framing hammer. I mean, a sledgehammer would be the next round
Yeah.
up from a framing hammer.
Yeah.
So framing hammers are heavier. They're designed to be swung with a full swing as opposed to like a trim hammer. So I don't know what a concrete hammer is. I mean, I guess that's a jackhammer or a sledgehammer. But I mean, a
Yeah.
sledgehammer to the chest would mess you up.
Mhm.
At one point, there's about to be a stoning. True or false? That's a bad way to die.
That's my second. I think that would be the second worst way to die. The worst way would be drowning.
Not
I'm,
fire.
I'm
Fire.
okay.
Fire.
That might be bad. That might be bad. I guess if I was being stoned to death, I would just try to get hit in the head first.
Right, real quick. Just
Yeah.
Nick, if you ever read my bio on our website, I've nearly drowned literally like 7 times.
Learn to swim.
After the first two. How does this happen after the first
Well,
two?
I mean,
that
the
it
first
keeps
two I
going
was
on?
a toddler.
Okay.
They were all very diverse, and honestly, it's most of them were fairly peaceful.
Sean's older siblings kept trying.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Ironically enough, I have 6 siblings.
Product of being younger.
All right, so Peter Ash runs toward gunfire. True or false? Nick Petrie, hearing gunfire at the coffee shop, is out the back door.
I'm a curious guy. My wife would shoot me for saying this, but I would probably go see what's going on. Not that I have any skills that would, make me useful in a situation
I
like
wrote
that.
about this. I'm going to be good at it.
Peeking around the corner.
Yeah. Yeah. I would duck down behind some parked car and yeah.
We just your wife just now made upped her
Life insurance
purchase
policy.
life insurance. Okay. You can hang out with any character you have created other than Peter. Who is it and what would you do?
Oh, it'd be Lewis, and we'd go to the gun range in the basement of his commercial building.
I like it.
Oh, I would too.
What in society would make you become a doomsday prepper?
It's actually not that far. I'm not that far away from that. I think it's laziness.
got a van.
To me, the principle is sound. The principle is absolutely sound. I'm just too lazy to. It's a lot of work.
It
It's
is.
like you gotta buy dried beans and dried rice, and then you have to eat them. You got to cycle through them unless you're gonna just throw them away. I think it would be fun to do some survival training. But I'm also in my 50s, and my wife again would probably confine me to quarters if she knew that was something I was interested in doing. But
Hoping with a good dry run.
yeah. But I mean, the world is getting weirder, and we are not that. There was something in the news not too long ago about like solar storms, and we have our entire communications infrastructure.
Yeah.
Is electronic. If we had a really nice solar flare, we are back in the Stone Age. It's like, yeah.
Dude, speaking of that, go out tonight. There's because of a solar flare tonight. There's going to be. You'll definitely see the aurora borealis. You too, Sean. Mike,
Maybe.
You're not going to get anything.
Not me, maybe.
It's funny because or it's not funny. I read the book. What is it, like 1 minute after 1 month after 1 year, and it's about like what would happen if the grid went down, and it is amazing. The one that I think it's the 1 month after is the one that blew my mind. How much society would crumble with 30 days of loss of power.
Millions of people dying.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, it goes beyond that. It's almost like when I read it, I was like, oh, this is kind of hard to believe. And then I look at how people react to anything in society. I'm like, no, this might be optimistic. But anyway, my last question. Since Lewis, as you said earlier, is a part of your psyche, he's in there. What crime or caper have you visualized yourself carrying out in life?
What? Wait, don't answer that question.
We're off the air.
I kind of think about this a lot. I mean, I'm a crime writer, right? So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
a
of
big
course.
part of
Yeah.
what I do. But like, I don't know. I was on a panel the last time I was in Tucson at the Tucson Festival of Books, and somebody asked everybody on the panel, like, how would you dispose of a dead body? And there were three people on this panel. I was last. The first person was like, I mean, the other two people sort of looked at each other like, how do we answer this question? I don't like, this is really weird. And I'm just like, I have an answer. Like, I know how to do this. Like, it's not, I'm a physical guy. I live in the physical world. I think about this stuff. I mean, not necessarily disposing of a body, but like, it's a problem, right? Like, I know how to solve a physical problem in the cleanest, simplest, kind of, you don't dismember the thing. You just wrap it up in a tarp. There's some duct tape and baling wire. You throw it in the back of your van. Another reason to have a van.
Along with the sheetrock. Go on.
Yeah, yeah.
Going it down.
But it's just where my mind goes.
Wait.
That,
Where's the body go though? Just not can't
Yeah.
eat it in the van.
oh well, you throw in a couple of cinder blocks. You gotta poke some holes in the stomach so it doesn't inflate.
Very important.
And I live in Wisconsin, so I got Lake Michigan not too far away. We got a bunch of lakes if I go west or north.
Mhm.
It's not that complicated.
Clear as browser history, everybody.
Leave your phone at home.
Yes.
Right. Oh, and that's a good thing to remember.
It's funny because like
Sounds
the
like a
movie-
man who knows.
the movie National Treasure always has me like thinking about any sort of valuable thing, how I would go about trying to, no, not that one, but every time I'm really into wine right now. My wife and I have gotten into wine these past couple of years, and I'm always like, okay, so there's the bottle, the holy grail of bottles, and it's here. How would I go about acquiring that? That's the kind of things I think about criminally. the things I would like to acquire and how I would do that.
I think did you guys follow the heist at the Louvre?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was super interesting.
Fascinating.
And how simple
But
the
down to
plan
basics.
was. Yeah.
Down to basics. Yeah.
They have to be simple. Yeah. They always have to be simple. Simple.
Oh,
Too many points of failure if it's too complicated.
true. Well, Nick, congratulations on your new novel coming out. Here we go. The Dark Time. This thing was fast from the get-go, everybody. No downtime. So thanks for coming out. Appreciate your time on it. And good luck on the rest of your interviews. None of them will be as interesting or as fun as this one, but we're here to tell you that. So cheers to Nick Petrie and the Dark
Back
Time.
at you guys. Great to see you as always. And hopefully we can do this in the flesh sometime.
Sir.
Cheers.
The back of a van.
Are you saying you'd like to be abducted? Is that? I mean, it sounds like that's kind of what you're saying. Is that sort of a fetish of yours, or?
Well, it kind of goes with my job. My job.
Don't ask Mike too many questions. Chris and I have learned not to interview Mike.
Oh my god!
Hey boys,
Yes.
we had the amazing Nick Petrie on the crew reviews today. It's been a while. It's been a while. Lots happened. Yes, but I just didn't put it through the dishwasher. So the Dark Time. Yes, the Dark Time. This is fast. Like we talked about in the interview, there was barely any letdown through this whole thing. So I cruised right through it. I'm sure you boys did too. So we're happy to be back. Good to see you gentlemen again. It's been a little bit.
Been too long.
That's great to see
Too
you.
long. Little toast to the most, and that is you. And out.